Good evening. We will call the meeting of the Edina City Planning Commission to order October 24th, 2002. Jackie, would you please call the roll?
Here.
Commissioner Forrest. Here. Commissioner Shorter.
Here.
Commissioner Kilburg.
Here.
Commissioner Potts.
Here.
Commissioner Flattiger.
Here.
Commissioner Chakowski. Here. Commissioner Carpenter.
Here.
Commissioner Stoughton.
Here.
Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Chair Grable.
Here. Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the meeting agenda. You have the agenda in front of you. Are there any additions or changes to be made to the agenda? I sound like I'm in the middle of a big steel drum or something right here. Any changes to the agenda? I have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. First item on the consent agenda is the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of October 10th, 2012. You have that in your packet. Are there any corrections, additions, or changes to the minutes? Commissioner Scheer?
I didn't receive them in my packet.
Well, I guess in that case, shall we hold approval until the next meeting? Is that all right with the commission? All right. Next item on the agenda is community comment. During the community comment portion of the meeting, the Planning Commission invites residents to share issues which are new or concerns which are new, which have not been considered by the commission in the past 30 days and which are not scheduled for consideration this evening. If you wish to address the commission, please come to one of the podia at the side to give us your name and address, and we'll be glad to hear from you.
My name is Kathy Wasesha Clifford. I live at 5348 Hollywood Road. I understand that tonight you're going to be looking at another site plan on the development on right off of Todd Park, and you will be discussing it, but as a resident of the neighborhood, we would like to be involved in this project because we feel it is requiring too many variances and is not in tune with our neighborhood. So because you're going to discuss it tonight, it's kind of...
Well, Ms. Clifford, let's wait until
Yeah.
we actually discuss it tonight, and then we'll be glad to hear from you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other members of the community wish to address the commission? Hearing none, seeing none, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is reports. And the first item is a sketch plan review for 5109 to 5125 West 49th Street. Carrie?
Members of the commission, I think you're all familiar with this property as we've looked at a couple of sketch plans for this site in the last few months. It's located just east of the Holiday gas station on Vernon Avenue, east of the railroad tracks. There are 3 properties that are involved. There is a single-family home and 2 townhome units. This is a look at the single-family home and the 2 townhomes. Total of 10 units on these 3 parcels in all. Back in March, the Planning Commission considered a 6-story senior project that included 98 units. That was 71 units per acre. And then in June, a 4-story senior project was considered that had 60 units. That would have been 43 units per acre. The finding of the Planning Commission during both those reviews was that was just a little bit too much for the site. So the applicant is back, and what they're requesting a sketch plan review of this go-around is for an 18-unit attached housing concept, somewhat similar to, you may recall, the presentation I believe that JMS made about 6-9 months ago in a different part of town, but I think kind of the same concept here with attached housing. Again, 18 units, so the overall density would be 14 units per acre. They're just quickly go through some renderings that they've provided. Not a lot of detail, but gives you the idea of the project. The applicant is asking consideration for rezoning to PRD4 or PUD. We'd ask that the Planning Commission talk about if there's any preferences there. Either way, if this is well received by Planning Commission and Council, a comprehensive plan amendment is required. This is guided in our comp plan for low density attached residential, but it goes with a density of 1 to 4 units per acre. So the comp plan amendment would be required for the 14 units an acre that they're requesting. The comp plan designation for high density is anything over 12 units an acre. Just as you may recall, we looked at some of the site plan on the previous requests. And again, looking at with this project, variances would be required essentially for the setbacks on all sides. They're not nearly as severe as some of the previous setbacks that we looked at. So with that, I guess I can stand for questions. The applicant is here and has a presentation as well. So I can open it up for questions.
Questions of staff? Carrie, I have a question. How many units are in the existing apartment buildings?
In all, there are 10. There's 4 units in one of the townhomes, another one has 5, and then the single-family home. So for the 3 parcels, there are 10 units.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Staunton?
how many units per acre is that out of the existing?
Yeah, that would be, I believe it's a little over, what would that be?
10 units now.
Yeah, I believe it's a little over an acre, this site. So it would be, it exceeds what our comprehensive plan guides for this area for 1 to 4 units. It's probably closer to the 8 to 10 range per acre.
So this, on the chart on the second page of the staff report, you have, you indicate that the city standard is 8 units per acre or 11 units, but the comprehensive plan is 1 to 4 units?
Correct.
So is the current zoning not consistent with the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, it would be.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions of staff? Thank you. Would the proponent wish to make a presentation?
Thank you. Chair Grable, Commissioners, thank you for having us back again to look at Vernon Avenue. We have taken a harder look at this after our previous 2 rounds with you, and after doing some more market studies, we think that we have something that will be very beneficial to this area, as well as fit a little bit more easily with the space. So as Carrie showed you, the existing site with the exit from the highway here, the gas station, the street down to get to 49th, this is our site. Just some ideas of some driving vision for the site, the idea of that connection up to Vernon, something that connects 49th up the hill, using the existing tree canopy along Vernon to soften the backs of those spaces, just really looking at something that enhances that livability with the green space. Here's the new site plan, and I'm going to zoom in to the close-up version so we can walk you through that. We have 6 units across 49th here, each with little walk-ups from this. We think that this particular arrangement works a little bit better because it fits more the single-family neighborhood style, even though these are townhomes. But the framework of each individual unit works a little bit better with the buildings across the street. It's walking up a stoop for each one, planted with some trees in between. Turning the corner, we have one entry into the property, one driveway curb cut. Then each unit has its own tuck-under garage with 2 cars. So we're keeping all the cars off the street and underneath the units. So that's the basement, and then there's 2 levels above on each unit. We have 2 different types. We have 6 of one type and then 12 of another type here. 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side, and then 4 sets of 2 along Vernon, with some patios and connections in the back as well. We're not taking away any of the previous things we proposed. The connection from 49th up to Vernon here along the western side of the site remains, with some access out the back. The reworking of the sidewalk along Vernon and the connections east and west there, also will remain. Here, as Carrie mentioned, here's some of the 3-dimensional images, really taking advantage of that existing tree cover along Vernon to buffer these spaces and the topography, as we've discussed before, tucking them into the hill. So just a few images there. So here is the breakdown. Townhome type A, finished square feet is about 2432. B is about 2159. So 3 levels each, with a gross square footage of 3,600 and 3,120 respectively. Again, 6 units of type B, 12 of type A, giving us 18 units altogether. Here's a closer view of those units. We have a 40 by 26 unit. It's the garage space on the bottom, moving up to some living area, kitchen, dining, and then some bedroom space on the top. And then a little bit larger unit, the 40 by 30 unit, a similar layout. So with that, I will stand for questions. Be eager to hear. One of the things we were looking at was variances versus PUD. We thought after talking with staff that the variances for this particular project, as staff indicated, were much more palatable than our previous variances for setbacks, and we weren't sure that going for a PUD was valuable, but we wanted to hear your opinion. We're open to either. So.
Thank you, Mr. Motzenberger. Questions for the proponent? Commissioner Forrest?
Where would you anticipate trash hauling to take place? How would you handle people moving in and out frequently, that kind of thing, as far as the parking of a moving truck? Stuff like that.
The drive aisle, Commissioner Forrest, Chair Grable, is a standard width about 20-some feet wide. So there would be plenty of space for if someone was loading in for a moving truck to park, with also a egress around that truck. Each individual unit, you could also have a smaller truck, park in that driveway as well. Each individual unit will have their own trash bins, and we will designate a location on the site for bringing those on trash day.
Carrie?
Sorry, I'd like to just, I misspoke earlier, or the information that I provided was incorrect. I got out my comprehensive plan. I think I indicated that the density in the comp plan was 1 to 4 units an acre. This is guided for between 4 and 8 units per acre as low density attached. So the current zoning does comply in that there's 8 units per acre over those 3 lots. So it is in compliance with today's comp plan.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. Motzenberger? Commissioner Plattiter?
Just curious, do you anticipate, covenant or regulations in here for, cars parked in the driveway, those types of things? How are you having an overall association or something with this too, that, rules or bylaws or anything? I'm just curious, are they all individuals by themselves?
I'll let my colleague, Mr. Hunt, take that question.
I'm Dan Hunt, the president of Hunt Associates, the developer. It will have an association that will, like most associations, kind of direct all those types of things. People will have how many cars they can have, where the garbage will go. The exterior of all the buildings will be part of the association, so any change to that would have to be approved by the association.
Thank you.
I have a question on your, on the screen that is being shown right now. On the east side, that driveway goes out, and then, is that just a turnaround there and next to the,
This location here.
right, yeah, right there?
Yeah, it's just a hammerhead for those who are backing out to give them some
Okay.
space to turn around.
Commissioner Chair.
I'm trying to understand something here. In your material, it looks like there are going to be 3 stories for each unit, and the garage is in the lowest level. So do the driveways go down? Is there sort of a dugout, or is this 3 stories above ground?
Above ground.
3 stories above ground. So that's different than our packet, which talks about the proposal being 2 stories above ground. So we would need to change that. Well, if it's from ground level, it'll count because, and there's actually finished square footage behind it in their plan too, so, yeah.
It would be more like a half level out of the ground. If you'll excuse me, I'm really starting to feel
You're
sick
looking
here.
really pale, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact. Maybe you should sit.
Yeah, so that
I
would
think
be
you should
great.
sit. Somebody, maybe, yeah, he's looking a little.
My name's Jack Borman, and I'm the senior partner at BKB Group. And you all right, Dave?
I can try and continue to answer from here. I'd just rather.
Why don't you let me?
I-
Yeah, let me. Basically, the townhouses along 49th. 49th goes from elevation 26 feet on the west to about 35 feet on the east. You go slightly uphill. So the townhouses along here, this elevation back here, you come in and you go down to about 28 and you stay flat. So these garages right here at 28 would be about 6 feet below the street level, 6 to 7 feet. So you would walk in and go from the street, you would walk up the sidewalk, you would go up about 3 feet to the porch entrance to the townhouse. So on this end here, it would be more like 3 feet. So this whole side is more like a walk-up where you would have steps to a porch and then an entryway. And then on the south side, you would have there would be only a full exposed 3 stories here on the south side. So on the north side, it would be a 2.5-story exposure, of which you'd have the steps and then the porch area and then the entrance. Go ahead.
And just to clarify, the north side is the streetscape, so the view from neighbors across the street would be, I'm going to describe it as a brownstone, sort of a 2.5-story
2.5-story.
exposed with some
That's
stairs up to the main level.
That's correct.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
And then a similar, there'd be a planter here. You would never see more than a 2.5-story exposure along 49th. Okay, yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Staunton?
Just following up on that as we go around, because the topography here is so
Right.
dramatic, can you
Okay.
just maybe go around the edge of the property and kind of describe how, I don't know if it's the backside or the front side, will it interface with that pedestrian way? Will it interface with Vernon and the sidewalk,
Sure.
et cetera?
From this point here, which is like 52 to 26 is this, and then at this point, it's 26. Okay, so what's going to happen here is it's
So
going to
over
be...
about what kind of run do we have there that it drops
Well,
26 feet?
it's going to be steeper from here to here,
Okay,
and then these two units step. So these units would step down as they would go towards 49th. And then we would keep a fairly gradual as possible and as continuous a slope as possible all the way from Vernon to 49th. There's going to be some, and we haven't worked it all out yet, but like this entrance here, you might enter right directly at the second floor.
so for
This
those,
entrance down here, it might be in a two and a half story stoop.
but are you kind of envisioning that those are the front door there?
Those are the front doors.
Okay,
Those are definitely the front doors, because we have this big green space over here, it's really,
sure.
yeah. Visually, this would be the front doors along this north-south walkway.
And then how about on the south side? Where's the front door?
On the south side, all the front doors, there's two front doors here, and then it steps back, and two front doors here, and steps back. And
So
two
you're envisioning right off of Vernon with a sidewalk on Vernon, and that'll be the
sidewalk
front
here,
door.
right. The whole concept is that these are like larger double homes with their own entrance, and then they're stepped as they go down Vernon. And this building actually is probably going to be 3 or 4 feet high, about 3 feet higher than this building, because it's about 46 right here, and it's 43 right here.
And how tall are you envisioning
These, on this side, you pretty much would only see a 2-story exposure
from Vernon?
from Vernon.
How about from the other from the parking lot, is it a
3-story.
Okay,
Yeah, you'd have garage below and then 2 above.
okay.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, this is a very gabled, well, made it work and didn't know it. This is a very gabled approach where we're using, the top floor would be a gabled upper story. So you're getting like almost like a 1.5-story exposure.
Okay.
That's pretty much true over on 49th as well, although it'll be pretty much a 2.5-story exposure, so.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions. One, maybe you can just speak to how guest parking works. I know you've accommodated the 2 enclosed parking spaces.
Right, it's, okay. There's guest parking, this turnout actually would be 2 parking spaces, so that's, but mostly right in front of the garages, because there's an opportunity all along here and in here and in here is, our goal is to have guest parking right in front of the garage. That's a little tougher right here, so we're probably gonna have to modify this a bit so that we can get 2 cars there. So our goal is to have guest parking in front of the garage of the respective unit.
It just didn't seem like the driveway depths were long enough. And I can understand that we can have street parking, but for some, we have Vernon Avenue as a street, which isn't nearly so convenient for guests.
We definitely are, our goal, and we have some flexibility on the garage level to be able to move the garage door in and out to create some depth there. So like this unit here, the garage access may be a little deeper so we can get 18 feet for a car. The back out here is gonna, we're probably gonna modify this so you could back out here and turn into the driveway. Our goal is to have, you know, if there's 18 units here, we could have 36 guests, you know, and not block a driveway or park in a driveway.
Great, thank you. I have one other question in your narrative. You have a sentence that says, "We do not anticipate taking any MLA bonuses at this time." I don't know what bonuses we offer. Maybe you could.
I'm gonna refer to my colleague here on that one.
There was some various bonuses for distance from the highway. An extra, I believe it was 200 or 250 square feet. There was another bonus. I would have to get out my sheet and look. There was about 2 or 3 possible bonuses, but with the requested rezoning to PRD 4, we found that that in and itself brought up the allowed residential units to 19, and we were at 18, so it didn't make any sense to look at that. So that was what we were referring to with that comment.
So the bonuses were referencing the PRD 2 zoning, the underlying zoning? Okay. thank you.
Correct.
Other questions for the proponent? Commissioner Fisher?
I think you pretty much addressed it, but I just want to clarify from the grade perspective from Vernon down to the other street. So the units that are closer to Vernon, there's 2, 4, 8 of those. Those are literally 3 stories acting, that's what because what's a little, it's not intuitive when you look at the, you know the site is sloping quite substantially, and yet you look at this and it looks like at least, from this plan view, it looks like a flat site solution, but you're really making the grade transition with those units and then the stepping unit on the side, and that's.
Right, so right here, you're gonna be entering right at the second floor. Then it's a 10-foot drop from here to here, just in the unit, because this area back here is 10 feet lower. So there will be a little bit of a retaining wall here, and we're gonna be coming down that 10 feet. So our goal is, there's 25 feet. So at midpoint, we should have gone down 12 and a half feet. So here, we're already down 10. Now, the second floor of this unit will be looking on the roof of this unit. Not totally, but then this unit steps down and that steps down. So these units here are going to be a stepped foundation unit going down. So this area here, our trickiest topography is going to be right in here, where we're really going uphill here to get to these garages. And we don't have all that worked out yet, but the concept for this building here is to really step it down the hill to work with that, trying to keep the walkway relatively consistent slope.
Okay, that makes sense. The question I had, what have you thought about the materials at all on these? The term brownstone was used, and I didn't see that piece.
Shall I just go for that, Dan? Well, right now they're just white.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very quality-oriented, gabled brick, dormers, very not a colonial style or something like that. I wouldn't envision, but something that's a high-quality brick and trim and siding and heavier roof edges and gables and detailing about the roofs, so that it has character and it has quality. I think that's and I would hope at least the living room level and the part that would be exposed below that could be a combination of brick and fieldstone. I love the fieldstone on this building, having worked on it. Our firm did. So the concept of a very high quality brick and heavy trimmed and large windows kind of feeling, but a nestling of that second floor into the roof, because we really wanted to have a very warm, sort of high quality, little heavier trim feel.
Okay, thank you.
One of the, I salute the fact that you've moved from 71 units to 18.
I think we had a lot of good advice.
One of the questions that has been raised in the past, and I'm sure will, if this goes forward, will be raised again, is what about traffic? Have you thought about traffic, not only traffic moving out onto Brookview, but then traffic moving up onto Interlochen? And have you given any thought or done any work as far as vehicle numbers and that type of thing?
Chair Grable, Commissioners, as one of the discussions we've had with staff, that is one of the requirements as to do a traffic study, and so we're in the process now of looking at traffic engineers to do that study, and we'll be looking at 49th, at the connections to Vernon, and how that works. We'll be bringing that report with us with our application.
Commissioner Staunton?
I don't know if you have it in your presentation, or if Carrie, you could pull up the aerial, which is page A2 in the packet. It doesn't show it as well. So what I'm interested in is the space. So it looks like you've got 5100 and 5117 are the two multi-unit buildings, and then 5125 is the single family, right? That's an existing single family. And then it looks like there's a strip of land next to that. Is that part of the 50? I guess what I'm interested in is between the railroad tracks and 5125, how much of that is the rail right-of-way and how much of that is what you own?
That is all right-of-way. Up until, I believe the property line is somewhere in this location, but this is rail right-of-way.
The driveway, what appears to be the driveway of the home, is actually the right-of-way for the street. It's an unimproved city
Yes.
street.
So that, what is that? Is that city
That's a city street.
right-of-way? So it goes from 5125 to city right-of-way to railroad right-of-way?
Yes.
Ah. And that's a vacated street, is that what that?
No, it's not vacated.
Unvacated street. And are you counting on that, or are you not counting on that?
We are requesting that the city vacate it.
Vacated to you, okay.
That has actually already been vacated.
I thought that had.
So it's this little strip right here
Right, that's what I was looking at in the packet. So
that has been vacated.
when you are counting your units per acre, are you counting that space? So we're at 13 units per acre, is what you're proposing. Are you including that acreage to get to your 13?
We hadn't been.
Okay, so,
With it being vacated,
so if you
we can add
included
that
it,
to that.
would that bring you, that brings you down? Carrie, there was another part of the report that talks about, on the first page of the report, you said comprehensive plan amendment would be necessary to HDR, high-density residential. It would be required to allow a density of over 12 units per acre. Is there a category between 8 and 12? Because you said the existing comp plan is 4 to 8.
Oh, look.
I guess what I'm driving at is, you know, if the border is 12, why are we doing 13 if 12 makes less of a disruption to the comprehensive plan? If you can do the 18 units, but you can still do 12 units per acre.
I've got the breakdowns here. Low-density residential, that's our single-family home area.
That's the 1 to 4 that we
That's,
talked about,
yep,
right?
that's 1 to 5.
1 to 5.
And low-density attached, which this property is designated, is between 4 and 8. And then we have a medium-density residential, and that's between 5 and 12 units.
So if you got to 12, you wouldn't have to make it high-density residential, you can make it medium-density residential. A less dramatic comprehensive plan change. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Schroeder?
I have just a question, Carrie, also relating to that. In the PRD4, what is the building coverage limit? It says that they're at 37%. The standard for PRD2 is 25%. What is it for PRD4? And then I guess I can jump ahead to the question I'll ask the applicants. Have you thought at all about stormwater management? We do have a significant increase in hardcover, I'm assuming, but versus what's there today. And I don't know if this has gone through, Carrie, any engineering review, but I'm just wondering if you thought about how that would be handled in this site.
Chair Grable, Commissioner Schroeder, yes, we will be looking at using some of the green space between the driveways as well as along the sides for some rainwater gardens, as well as exploring other methods for stormwater control.
The PRD4 building coverage requirement is 30%.
And I'm assuming that when you calculated the hard cover, it also did not include the strip of vacated or unvacated land, so that would also help get you closer to the 30%.
Mr. Carpenter?
Just on the subject of the stormwater management, can you talk a little bit more about what's possible there in addition to the rain gardens, since it's such a confined space?
Depending on space in the units, my colleague may be able to answer that, but there may be ways to do rainwater collection off some of the roofs. The way that some of the roofs are pitched towards the center, you can grab some of that rainwater and filter it to cisterns or rain barrels that sit between those garages, inside, outside. Depending on to what degree we would like to address that and have the opportunity to do so, we can look at different types of cisterns. But ways to collect it off the roof, I think, is another one that would be easy to do with in conjunction with these rain gardens, because you could then funnel that water directly to the rain gardens and help it infiltrate.
Other questions for Mr. Matzenberger and his associates? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I didn't let you talk earlier, so I think it's appropriate if you'd like to make a few remarks now.
Kathleen Clifford. I own the house at 5348 Hollywood Road. I've been there for 12 years and seen, lots of changes in the neighborhood, and previous complexes and proposals to turn small properties into townhome developments have been shut down. This one is sort of surprising to me because we have a comprehensive plan and we are in the Todd Park neighborhood and we're not part of the Grandview development plan. And so every time the developer comes in with another plan which requires a number of variances, we as residents ask, what is the advantage for us? And I thought variances are supposed to be granted on a basis of hardship to the people that live there. But here we have a situation in which the developers coming in and asking everybody to grant variances, and they've not proven anything that's going to really benefit the neighborhood. We're not addressing the traffic problems at Interlaken. We're not addressing the lack of sidewalks. And most of the concern seems to be about the appearance of this project from Vernon. And when you're coming off the highway in a hurry, you're not really looking. It's really supposed to be a neighborhood project, in which case how it looks to the neighborhood is more important than how it looks to Vernon. So I'd ask that you consider that more than, trying to annex this neighborhood into the Grandview project, which is how we feel it looks. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Clifford.
Can I just ask a question, Ms. Clifford? Yeah. Would you mind? Yeah. First of all, thanks for coming out tonight. It's always valuable to have folks here who live in the neighborhood and understand what it feels like. As I'm wrestling with it, I'm kind of thinking, your points are well taken about Vernon. You have the other side, and I'm thinking about, too, the single-family homeowners on the other side of the street from this. But it ain't great right now. I mean, there's a couple of pretty tired multiple unit buildings. And so do you have a thought about, what you would envision? I mean, eventually it's going to turn over. What are you thinking?
The crummier properties in the neighborhood are being hauled out, torn down, and we're getting rebuilds, and it's a little bit more prevalent across, the street, from that neighborhood across the railroad tracks.
Right.
But because of the fact that the properties are not too expensive, they're very attractive to developers to come in. And so I don't see that there's any problem in redeveloping these properties within our code. I mean, we already have a plan. So, put 12 units in as you suggested, but you don't need 19 or 20 or 90 is where it started.
Right,
and also, I just had like a few minutes to look at the 30-page report that Carrie Teague provided, but empty nesters don't want a three-story floor plan. And so you know, people that are older don't want stairs, so I don't know what the marketing point of view is on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Clifford. Anybody else wish to make any remarks before we bring the discussion back up here to the Planning Commission? This is not a public hearing, but we welcome input from everybody. Okay, thank you very much for your presentations and for your participation. Comments and discussion here by the commission members. Commissioner Fisher.
I like it a lot better than the other ones. You know, I think it actually starts to utilize the grade, the site pretty well, and clearly is a much better attempt at fitting in with the neighborhood scale, particularly looking across the street. I think ultimately there will have to be answers about the variances. So Ms. Clifford is correct in that, you know, there's a whole process and a whole discussion around that, and it has to be more than it makes sense. And, you know, we understand that you're not taking down single-family homes here. The properties are based on multifamily, and there's that whole density requirement to redevelop and all that. You know, personally, I think this is, you know, so much closer, and I think we could have a serious discussion about this one.
Commissioner Scher?
Ditto. I particularly would want a review, of course, and we would in a formal presentation. When we look at this issue of the vacated street that Commissioner Staunton brought up, I think some of the proposed variances might change, give us a little, you know, clearer picture of what we would be discussing with the developer. But I like the concept clearly, much better. Hard for me to speak to the marketability issue. I guess I'm the closest to that retiree sitting on this panel of anybody we were talking about, and I wouldn't buy a house with 3 stories at this point in my life, but I can't speak for everybody else. I notice we have, a master bedroom and 2 others, so I would think that a younger family might find this appealing also, if the price point were correct. The neighborhood is certainly nice and very conducive to family living. But the concept is definitely going in the right direction. I applaud you for that.
Commissioner Carpenter?
I will generally concur with those comments, but I did want to just offer one thought, and this is partially in response to the neighbor comment as well, which is that it is still a little tight, and we talk a little bit about how we see this stuff evolving as it moves further through the process. I do wonder if it might make a little more sense to carve off a space or 2 just to give it a little bit more room. It does look like the drive areas and the parking areas are tight. Comments with respect to garbage pickup, et cetera. I mean, I understand it's all in theory workable, but it's tight, and it's possible that you could improve this a little bit by and I know it's not as financially attractive to do so, but perhaps to peel off a unit or 2 and just give it a little bit more breathing room.
Commissioner Forrest?
First of all, I don't consider this a pocket neighborhood. I don't think it fits the definitions and descriptions that were provided to us when we were discussing pocket neighborhoods before. It's a townhome project. I also wonder about the discussion of this as senior housing because of the lack of accessibility, including on the western walkway. I mean, previously and in the sample photo that you provided this evening, it's a stepped sidewalk. It's not an accessible sidewalk for wheelchairs or even easily for walkers. So when you describe senior housing, those 2 things really hit me. The fact that there's an accessibility issue with both within and without the units, and also I know that that may be an artifact from our earlier discussions, that it started out as senior housing. It may be because I don't know if that's a selling point for us or for the public or whatever, or a marketing point. But I just want us to be realistic with that. I'm concerned about two things. One is the east side setback, because it's extremely close to the neighbors, and you're talking about having parking there or turnaround space there as well. I think that may be a bit of an imposition. And I'm also concerned about the fact that we're talking about, and this is more of a high-level theoretical point of view, but we're talking about going through with the project and then amending the comp plan to comply. And we're to be guided by the comp plan rather than the other way around, where the comp plan is guided by the projects that come before us. So I want us to take it very seriously before I really want a serious discussion about that aspect of this if we go forward with it, because it seems like it's a little bit deceitful otherwise.
If I might, I'm looking at page A7, the memorandum from Vernon Avenue Housing from Mr. Motzenberger to Kerry. They do describe this as a townhouse development and not a pocket development. And they do talk about empty nesters. And I think, you do need to take into account the fact that people of the age of Commissioner Scherer and myself aren't necessarily interested in climbing up 3 flights of stairs. So I think that's a legitimate point to consider. But they do describe it as a townhouse and not as a pocket.
That was in our report, I guess, was the mention of its similarity to a pocket neighborhood. So I just wanted to point out I didn't view it as such. And I do think perhaps, again, the earlier references to senior housing and that reference on one of our graphics on page A14 in our packet as well as a senior housing. I just think as it goes forward, I'd like a clearer picture of what's planned for this.
Other commission member comments? Commissioner Staunton?
I'm intrigued. I think this is it's a transition. So we've got Vernon and then 49th, and they're very different kind of faces, and I'm not sure that single-family homes are ideal there, because then you're going to be right backed up against Vernon, and do you really want to do that? So it's understandable that it's already some level of density, some multi-unit. So to me, and I think I said this in previous conversations we had about this, that a townhome kind of development feels like the right thing there. I'm mindful of Commissioner Forrest's comments about the comprehensive plan, and I think you'll find that the council wants to be deliberate and thoughtful about why we would change the comprehensive plan if we do. And so I do think you'd be wise to, if you're going to propose a comprehensive plan change, if it can be from low density attached to medium density instead of to high density, I think that's probably a desirable. It'd be better to be in that place than in the high density. And then I also, one thought that occurs to me in terms of the interaction with Grandview is we have done in the Grandview project, we did a lot of thinking about bike traffic and looking enviously upon the right-of-way that we don't control. But I always thought there was some way to get from Grandview to that neighborhood back there with bicycles and some kind of bike path. And so I see the pedestrian path, and that makes me start thinking maybe there's a way to also weave some kind of bike opportunity in there as well. And so I throw that out there as another idea that makes Vernon more porous for the people who live on the other side of the neighborhood. So going to the comment from the neighbor, you know, what's in it for us? Well, maybe if it's easier and safer to get to Vernon or easier and safer to get to other places, that helps. I also think how it's going to ultimately face or address 49th will be really important. You know, what's the view for people who are walking by on the sidewalk, walking their dog in the neighborhood, or people who live across the street in a single-family home? How, you know, you want to keep that residential feel on that side so people don't feel like it's a kind of institutional setting. And there are places around town that have done that pretty well, and duplexes and other multifamily where they fit into a single-family residential neighborhood. And so I think you want to just be thinking about that from an aesthetic perspective. But I'm intrigued. I agree with Commissioner Fisher. It's a lot closer. It starts to get to something that I could certainly think about in a positive way.
Commissioner Potts?
I wonder, in the spirit of the sketch plan, if we look at the two big issues, the issue of density and the issue of variances on each side. When I look at this plan, it looks like this 10-foot wide strip has been taken into account in the calcs, just looking at it at this scale. And I would guess in order to create this sort of an environment without the setback variances, they're going to go down from 18 units down to maybe 14 or 13. And so I wonder if we could give the developer some indication if, you know, would we consider that density increase to the medium density if they could take care of the side yard setbacks? So my inclination would be to say yes. I think in the interest of transition, that would be doable, but it does fairly significantly cut the number. And so it'd be a good piece of feedback to give, I think.
Commissioner Schroeder?
I want to step back to the Grandview plan a little bit, because one of the things that, while we didn't specifically look at land use for areas that are on the north side of Vernon, we did look at a reconfiguration of the exit ramp from Highway 100 going southbound. And what it would result in is possibly a reconfiguration of that off-ramp, no longer having kind of the broad sweeping curve, but having a more normal intersection. And the impact of that is taking what I think is the parcel at 5101 and essentially making a lot that's twice as large there, and at 5105 making a lot that has maybe a third more land area. And so I think as a planning commission, and this is I think related to the notion of the comprehensive plan, that when we look at reconfiguration of an access from the freeway and having excess land, we wouldn't want that excess land just sitting there. We would want it put to some useful purpose. And probably some kind of development would be something we would look at. We talk about this as a gateway development. We talk about that, and I think the developer in the past has talked about that. I think we ought to be looking at what happens with that extra land. And I think it suggests that this is not the only parcel that will change here. And so as we think about rezoning or comp plan amendments, we should be thinking about not just these group of parcels, but the other two that might change as well. Even if there's no intention for them to change now, we ought to be, I mean, we're a planning commission, we should be anticipating what might be happening on those remaining parcels.
Other comments from the commission? I guess my thought is, like the others, this is a great step forward in terms of the prior presentations and prior sketch plans that have been submitted. I like the idea of this townhouse concept. I've recently visited one in Minneapolis, in between Minnetonka Boulevard and Cedar Lake. There's a few areas backing up to the bike trail up there, and they're very attractive. I mean, they fit in and provide some nice housing. They do have multiple stories, so I didn't want to buy one, but still, it's something I think worthy of thinking about. And you know, you've had some good comments here, I think, tonight, as far as, you know, the first question is, did you really count the 10-foot strip, or didn't you? How does that change the calculations? Is there a way to possibly reduce the number of units to decrease the load on the lot? Several ideas to think about. Take into account the traffic, take into account, you know, what this is going to look like to the people across the street. You know, so those are my comments. I think this is, as some of the other commissioners have said, this is at least the start of a good idea, and something that would be much better than what's there now. So that's my thoughts. Other thoughts from the commission? Commissioner Chakowski.
I'm not sure exactly where the nearest bus stop is, but I think especially in senior housing, it's important to consider easy access to public transportation. So I just wouldn't want to see someone who doesn't drive have to go out of their way to get to the nearest bus stop, and like walk through the trees or something like that. So if you could take that into consideration.
Other thoughts from the commission? I hope we've given you some worthwhile feedback here. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, Ms. Clifford, for your comments as well. The next item on the agenda for discussion are some potential zoning code amendments, or zoning ordinance amendments. Oh, it's the same thing, I guess. One dealing with grading and retaining walls, one dealing with subdivisions. I think as Planner Teague and I have discussed this, at least with respect to the retaining walls and grading, we'd like to have some preliminary discussion on what y'all think of this proposal. And I think we'd like to, if we're able, somehow set up a public hearing on these matters so that we can obtain some feedback from the public on these particular issues. So with that, Carrie, do you want to lead this off, please?
Sure. Even though I provided all the background and ordinance amendments, I don't think the goal here is to get into the detail unless you'd like to. But it's more, as Chair Grable discussed, how should we bring this forward before we get into the detail of writing the ordinance? Let's get more input from the public out there. I've drafted up in ordinance form the regulations in regard to the subdivisions and grading, but it's more just to kind of keep track of where we're at and our ideas. So we've got a couple of options. We could get public input here at a regular planning commission meeting. And we could talk about how we'd like to notice that, send out notice in certain neighborhoods where this is occurring. We've received a lot of examples on that, on the grading and drainage issues. Could invite people from those neighborhoods. We can run something in the paper, something along those lines, and also advertise on the website. We could also, and again, we could do that right here at a regular planning commission meeting. We could, as you remember, what we did with when we were going through the ordinance amendments a couple of years ago with the PUD, where we had a meeting over at the senior center and invited people in. I think we had 15, 20 people that maybe attended the first meeting, kind of tapered off after that. But that was one way to, a little more informally, not on camera, get feedback. So I guess I just throw those ideas out and we can have a discussion any way you'd like.
What are the commission's thoughts on obtaining public input on some of these items, particularly the grading and the retaining walls? And if we do think that's a good idea, you know, do we inhibit public participation by having these discussions at a formal meeting where it's televised as opposed to a more informal meeting? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. Commissioner Platter?
Personally, I would probably, at least the first ones, have more of a, something at the senior center, a little less formal. I think a lot of more people might come to say something about that. We might get situations where, you know, they don't have to be as prepared or something, and just kind of let people talk through it as well, you know, versus having more of a discussion versus just a presentation type thing. That's my thoughts on it anyway.
Other thoughts on that? Commissioner Potts?
Here, I agree with Commissioner Platter. I think particularly with the retaining walls and site access language. I like the language that's in here. I don't think you're going to have many people opposed to this who live in the community, so it's more just a good topic for a general discussion. I think we'd hear a lot of feedback from folks who haven't had a chance to come out before that we probably should hear, who've been impacted. I mean, I've been tempted to take a few photos of interesting downspout configurations I've seen between homes. You know, I don't think we need to do that in a televised setting, but it would be valuable to hear. And I guess, Carrie, one question for you on this: do you have any issues with the mechanism of regulation of some of these steps here, the different reviews and monitoring of what's proposed?
I don't. Our city attorney he's got some reservations, and he's going to send over some suggestions later this week. What I more or less put together was some of the thoughts that we've discussed in our previous meetings. So I guess more to come on that. But
are we adding to the burden of existing condition surveys that people need to do with this?
With retaining wall detail, we would be. But I get, from what I hear from engineering, they're starting to do that anyway. So yes, I guess the short answer, yes, it will add a little extra burden to provide detail on retaining walls that are less than 4 feet in height.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think if there's a little bit of a change, I think it's worth it for what we'll get back. Again, I'm very much in support of these changes you're proposing. Thanks.
Commissioner Staunton?
So I hear people talking about, and I think it's right, that we have to kind of do more than a public hearing. You know, it's more than just putting a proposed text out there and having people come and give 3 minutes of comment and I think that's right, because I think we want to get some of the knowledge that other people have. And there's a variety of people who have that knowledge. There's people who've had something go up next door to them. There's people there's developers who've tried to build on a piece of property, or there's owners of property who've tried to build on the piece of property and now their neighbors are mad at them. And so I think that the comments about trying to start this in a more informal, roundtable kind of way is a good one. One thought that I would suggest is there's been some discussion, city staff has been proposing the notion of working groups, that the commissions could form working groups, which might have 2 or 3 members of a commission coupled with, you know, members from the public. It might be, you know, it might be a developer, it might be a resident of the Pamela Park neighborhood, it might be a resident of the Morningside neighborhood, it might be somebody who, you know, it might be an engineer, but so that we've got I think we want to be thoughtful about reaching out to the people who have knowledge about this, who can kind of share the challenges that they experience, and then build our solution out of that learning experience. And it doesn't have to just be that group. That group could then invite other people to come and have some kind of discussion like that. But my sense is it's going to take that, you know, we're going to keep missing the solution if we just take a stab at what we think based on the latest problem we've heard. you know, I mean, here, these two, I think, are perfect, the retaining wall, and obviously, we've seen the 50-foot wide deal several occasions now. We need a solution that's gonna be durable. And I just wonder if that mechanism might not be a helpful way to kind of do the groundwork before we then have the formal public hearing here, where a whole bunch of people can have participated in that, and we've benefited from their wisdom, and they also are getting smarter about the challenges that we have in trying to craft something.
Other thoughts on that?
Chair?
Mr. Carpenter?
Just a little bit different spin on what Commissioner Staunton was saying. This is not the most exciting stuff, and you know, we could have a, you know, what's that? Actually, for me, it probably does get exciting. But what I'm getting at is that we could have these small settings that people are talking about. We could have a small little work session for drainage, retaining walls, and site access, and I suspect that, you know, one person will show up. And that might be generous. I don't know. Yeah, I think we're probably more likely to, if we're really interested in getting input from the community, we're more likely to attract that if we have more than just one or two items. We probably, you know, I don't see any reason why we couldn't have a work session, you know, at the senior center or someplace else, you know, to give a different location, but that wouldn't, that would have more of a drawing card than just, you know, a couple items or something. I just don't think that there's enough, in my judgment, enough meat here to attract a, you know, a good outpouring of interest and support unless we really make it, you know, more significant than just, you know, one or two things.
Okay. Commissioner Forrest?
I sort of agree with that, especially with regard to the topic of grading, drainage, and retaining walls. I think some reasonable language has been put forward here. I don't know how much discussion from the public we would get on that particular one, although under number 3, when we talk about pedestrian access from front to rear yards, I like that a little bit more defined, either to say pedestrian and maintenance access, or put a, you know, 3-foot width or something on there, because pedestrian access could be tiptoeing along the top of the retaining wall as well. With regard to the consideration of subdivisions into smaller lots, I really would like to see a discussion along with that of building on smaller lots because of people's comments in the community about, you know, size, scale, and massing and all of those things, and concern about these oversized homes being built on these smaller lots. It seems like it would be a good parallel discussion, and if we did go forward with working groups, that might be something that, some way of addressing that.
Other thoughts? Let's assume that we would take Commissioner Forrest's suggestion and handle more of these issues than just the one, and that we would handle it through a working group. How would that work? I mean, Commissioner Staunton, you've had some experience with that with the Grandview project. How would you see something like that working?
So I think the key, I think what Commissioner Carpenter said is right. If you just roll the ball out, if you just put a public notice in the paper about drainage and retaining walls, it's, all of us will be very excited about it, but maybe not so much for other people. So I do think you have to deliberately reach out. You have to figure out who are the people who care about this and who have knowledge about this. And we've had some of them in front of us. We had the poor fellow who came in with the picture of his wife and next to the 12-foot retaining wall outside his side door. You have developers who are trying to figure out how to do a new house on a piece of property for somebody who, you know, wants the most they can get. But they want it to fit in, and they're trying to figure it out. And I know they've had some discussions with staff about, well, maybe if you brought the height down, then, you know, you could go further to the setback, so we wouldn't have these kind of, we wouldn't eliminate certain building designs because of the side setback regulations we have. So I think you have to put the energy into finding the people who care about it and have knowledge about it, and start with them. And then you move to, you know, then you've kind of corralled all of the knowledge, and then you're in a position where you can start to craft something. But I think if we craft something and then throw it out there, you know, it's just kind of shooting in the dark. So I guess I'd be interested in figuring out if there's a couple members of the commission who, you know, maybe it's the 50-foot lot and the how much is built on the lot idea is most suited for that. I don't know whether the grading and the drainage and the retaining wall, whether that fits with that or whether that's a separate thing, and maybe it doesn't warrant a working group. But I think some of these issues that are of sufficient size, and I think the 50-foot lots, since we've seen half a dozen of them, is one of those, that it's worth taking the time to measure twice and cut once, or we're going to just be right back in the same spot again. And I know we have at least a couple of commissioners who probably hear from their neighbors about, you know, too much house on too little lot right where they live. Maybe they'd be interested. And, you know, and we've had a mix of feelings. We don't exactly kind of come out monolithic on these 50-foot lot discussions, which...
You've noticed.
It occurred to me. So, you know, we have an opportunity to balance that out, too, with different perspectives on the commission. And then you put a group together that can get smart about this and then make some proposals that make sense.
Commissioner Platter, who has everything in his neighborhood.
Along with Commissioner Potts, so, between us. Well, I was just gonna say one thing on the 50-foot one. To that point, a lot of the things you hear about are built to code right now on 50-foot lots. So, to me, that's the perception. I think that's a larger part of the discussion, unless even then dividing them, because you can already do what you can do on there, and that's what I hear the things about, is maxing that, and then you get into retaining walls and access to backyards and all those things. So it's almost like that's the bigger piece than the subdividing piece to me a little bit, because you can't have one without the other. They're always going to be connected somehow, right or wrong in some cases, but they're going to be together. And that's how the public is perceiving those things right now. And that even though people are doing what they do in 50-foot lots, it's too big for them, but that is within what the city allows right now. But that's what you hear about.
Commissioner Fisher?
You know, if we're talking about how do you deal with topics that are of interest to some people more than others, and mostly not of great interest to probably the majority. One way you could do this to kind of combine a lot of these ideas. You know, I heard the word subgroups or work groups or whatever. You know, we could create sort of content experts, using that term very loosely, on our commission. You know, so you pair up and say, you know, you two take these 3 issues, you two take these 2 issues, and you could have an open house type forum where you're all at tables and people could come in and they might have an interest in 2 or 3 of these things, but they can work around, hear what's going on that issue, give their comment, their input. It's with Post-its, who knows? You can do it a number of ways. And then you could come back to the middle and share a little bit about what people did. But in a sense, you could gather up a whole lot of information in one evening or a weekend day. And it would essentially inform us as we come back and have more formal discussions here. The advantage of doing something like that is it breaks up the work a little bit on the commission. So you do a little work ahead of this meeting, obviously, because you want to be able to talk fluently. And then we've got some content experts as we bring the discussion back to this forum. And it's just one way to move a number of issues relatively efficiently through that kind of forum where people would, if they're sitting in a small group, they're going to be, I would think, very relaxed and feel comfortable giving their ideas.
Sort of like speed dating for zoning amendments. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potts.
I like that comment, Commissioner Fisher, and I think it's to Commissioner Platter's description of what you can build on a 50-foot lot. That brings up that issue of retaining walls. I think would be a part and parcel of that, very much. One other thing I would like to add to the agenda of this is the neighborhood definition issue. I'd like to come back to that again and question the 500-foot radius as defining a neighborhood, particularly in light of properties on the edge, that are on the edge or in between two neighborhoods like we looked at. I think it was Concord in 56 or 58. The results get skewed by using that sort of an arbitrary radius. So I'm not sure yet how that definition should take place, but I think if we hold some neighborhood sessions and have the map and have people define their issues, that would give us a chance to sort of spot check some of those definitions.
Other comments or thoughts? Well, Carrie?
And in addition to all the great ideas that you've talked about, one thing I didn't mention in regard to our website is the Speak Up Edina piece. Kind of a new part of of our website that would be a good way to tap into comments where you can get a dialogue going on some of these topics. It's been used with the neighborhood associations and naming of neighborhoods. They're up close to 100 comments on that site. So that might be one way to get additional comments as well.
I think I was thinking too in a survey, but I don't know how would that actually work. I don't know. Just a thought.
I don't know, we did. Pardon me?
We've done surveys in the past in different times, and it's a long time ago since we did things regarding the country club area, we did things regarding the Historical Preservation Board, I know, some surveying. Surveying's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little like that perennial question of, are the people here speaking for everybody, or are they just speaking, the loudest because they care the most about that particular issue, but are they the few or the majority? And surveys, in terms of who fills them in and how broadly you distribute them and how you weight the data, can become a point of some contention in and of themselves. It was my experience.
Let me ask another question. Assuming we went with the speed dating idea and we combined several topics, we've talked about neighborhood definition, grading, retaining walls, 50-foot lots and size of buildings put thereon, subdivisions, and I guess retaining walls. With the holidays coming up, is it an appropriate time to do this now, or should we wait until later? Do we try and do this now, or should we wait? Commissioner Scherer.
I think that's a really good point. I would probably say waiting is more effective. And I'd like to add one other thought, just into the general mix. How you present something is always interesting in terms of, the survey question led me to thinking about this. How you present something is always interesting in terms of what the feedback is. If you present something in writing with yellow and you say, respond to this idea, people go in a certain direction. If you present an issue that we've been grappling with, that's come before the Planning Commission a lot in the last year, and we want your feedback, we want your input, then you get a number of people who could say, here's what I think would be a better way to handle drainage, or here's what I think would be a better way to handle neighborhood definition. Not so much do you like or not like this one, but what do you think? would get at the issue for the community. So I think how you present it and how we lead these discussions will be really interesting in terms of the quality of the input we get.
Yeah, not so much leading, maybe. You know, how do you want to see your neighborhoods grow, or whatever the more, not as leading questions or a verbiage that points in a direction or something.
Mr. Potts?
In terms of getting good, meaningful feedback, I wonder if there's a way to build on this recent effort with the neighborhood naming, where people have gotten engaged, thinking about where they live a little more than they do. Can we sort of step up on that? We at least must have a good group of folks we can reach back out to now, who we know have been involved to continue their engagement and maybe build on it. So I don't know how that'll affect the timing of this, but it seems, sometime in January would make sense.
Commissioner Staunton?
So I have an idea. So since we
Glad somebody
kind of
does.
think that we don't, the holidays are kind of coming up, and that may be a hard time to generate public engagement, but we need to kind of build a foundation instead of just jumping right into this. So here's what I think might be a good idea. Maybe we have 3 planning commissioners, and I was thinking about Commissioner Forrest and Commissioner Potts and Commissioner Platter, who could lead, who could put together a group who would include residents who've had experience with this, developers who've had experience with this, developers/contractors, and anybody else they think are kind of relevant to corralling knowledge on the topic. And I would define it pretty broadly to be the kind of size of the lot, how much you can build on the lot, what happens with retaining walls and drainage and the like, grading, etc. And have that group then tee up a proposal for the process we follow to create a proposed solution if there is one. Now that I had 3 commissioners mad at me. The other 6 think it's a great idea.
I just want, I just want to clarify one thing. So this group would tee up what the process is going to be, or what the proposed resolution is, because we've missed a step of a real open public forum.
I think it's kind of a combination of both, but it's not making the decision yet, because I think they're going to conclude that they have to reach out to some people who have experience and gather information. But it would be a steering committee, if you will, or a committee that's going to frame both what we know and what we don't know, and what we have to find out, and who should engage. And so it's proposing a process, but also what the scope of the process. I mean, we've kind of talked about a number of topics, but I think it would take some thinking about, what are you going to include, what aren't you going to include, so it doesn't turn into a what should we do with the city conversation.
Throw the code out, start again.
Right.
Yeah. I just want to be sure that the end result is a real open invitation to lots of people to get a chance to weigh in before anybody's starting to lock into the answers or the changes in the code, that sort of thing. I want it to be a real transparent and open citywide opportunity anyway.
And I think that's critical to the
Yeah.
success of it, so that they would come back to us and kind of say, okay, here's the scope of what we think the issue is, here's the people we've talked to about what we know and what we don't know, and here's what we'd like to do to try to make sure we get as much input as we can from the community.
Yeah, I'd be willing to do this, and I think the first step is clearly defining the issue, and that'll be the mechanism to reach out and engage and get good input without losing any transparency, certainly.
I would also be willing, but the other thing is, thanks. The other thing, I guess my question is, when you're soliciting input, are you actually doing it publicly at that point, or are you just kind of fishing around to see I'm just looking for thoughts? Are you, builders, neighbors, just get some ideas? Are you are you looking for us to come up with something more formal? By formal, I mean a hearing or a open house versus having things along, you know, how open can that be?
I'd kind of envision that, I mean, kind of composing the group is one challenge, you know, so you take the 3 commissioners who are going to lead it, and then you'd have to figure out who you want to join you as part of this working group. And perhaps staff can be of help, and then that working group kind of formulates a proposed process about how you tackle this. And so, you know, it may be contacts people have, but it may also be staff is familiar with people who've expressed interest on the types of issues that we're wrestling with or had problems with the types of issues. Or I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, we all know people in the community who, right, I mean, you know, if you've had experience in your neighborhood or people have talked to you because we've wrestled with an issue at the commission and said, what are you guys going to do about this? And I just think the trick is to make it a small enough group that you can get something done in a short time frame from personal experience. Not 52. Okay, it's bigger than the bread box, smaller than the Mack truck. But it also includes more than just commissioners, because I think that's, and then it includes people who are going to have different perspectives. That's why I mentioned developers and contractors on the one hand, and, you know, property owners who have been disappointed or concerned about the way things are developing in their neighborhood on the other hand. And then if you get those people around the table, they can represent the various points of view.
And they define a process, and then they define a scope.
And then come back to us and say, well, what do you think? And then we try to fashion, and maybe by then we're ready for the first of the year to kind of say, all right, let's map this out in a time frame when the public is going to be more able to engage.
Commissioner Forrest?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay.
I think the big thing is that, for me, is the fact that we start talking about this publicly, because subdivisions and tear downs and rebuilds on small lots, they've been a hot issue. Probably, I think what makes them a hot issue is that people have been concerned about what goes on afterward. And if we're going to make any changes, or either to endorse or to endorse subdivisions, or to suggest limiting the scope of a project on a lot, then let's get it out there in public and let people have some input. Because to just fiddle around with variances and tweaks to the ordinance, you know, it's just delaying the matter more.
Mm-hmm.
Like Commissioner Platter had said.
Is this exciting enough for Commissioner Carpenter?
And he hasn't offered to jump in.
No, he hasn't done that.
Before.
Well, shall we proceed on that basis then? A subcommittee of the Planning Commission who will build a task force to define a process and scope of that process as we move forward on knowing what some of these issues are that have been the hot topics. I'm always surprised when people out there don't agree with what I think is right, and so we might as well acknowledge the fact that I know nobody else does. I'm quite used to that, as a matter of fact. So we can proceed and
so moved.
So I will take that as the consensus that that's how we will proceed. And you can begin working with staff and start to formulate that. And thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Staunton, for that fine suggestion. And thank you, Commissioners Platter and Potts and Forrest, for agreeing to serve on this subcommittee. Thank you. Moving on, we have correspondence and petitions. Received the council connection. You received your attendance sheets. And did we receive a council? I do have a question about the council. Did the proposal for 60th Street, has that been before the city council? Did they take that before the council?
60th Street?
No. The one we had last, the 5-4 vote at the last meeting that we had.
Oh, the applicant has requested a delay on that until December 4th. That's the subdivision on Concord?
Yeah, Concord, beg your pardon.
Yep. And that is the same, goes for the Southdale, Southdale Apartments. Council will consider that one on December 4th also.
Okay. That'd be an interesting meeting. Yeah, exactly. Chair and commission member comments. I have no other comments. Any commission member have any comments they wish to address? Commissioner Scherer.
And Jackie, this is just probably for you. I was looking ahead to November, and with holiday schedules and the fact that our second Wednesday, what are our meetings in November? What are our regularly scheduled meetings?
I don't have the calendar.
Okay.
The 14th is the next time we meet. And because of the Thanksgiving, the 28th, but are we gonna change that?
As of today, we're on for the 14th and the
14th and
28th.
28th.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
I got a holiday on the 22nd, so I assume that's Thanksgiving, so. Other commission members, comments? Staff comments?
None for me this evening.
All right, we've moved to that point in the meeting where I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.